Xenosystems Fragments. NRX with Chinese characteristics. Nickland. Narrated by Skeptical Waves. While recognizing, at least some, of the manifold complexities involved, outside in holds to a fundamentally cladistic determination of neo-reaction. NRX is irreducibly Occidental, emerging from a highly specific twig of Anglophone ultra-Protestantism. It is only to be expected that most of its adherents are situated within English-speaking countries, exposed intimately to radically accelerating civilizational decomposition. As a guest of the Middle Kingdom, the problem looks very different. The very last thing that is wanted here, from a reactionary perspective, is a reboot. On the contrary, the overwhelming priority is conservative, which is to say, more precisely, the imperative that whatever modernization takes place absolutely does not take the Western path. Near total stasis would be preferable to even the most deeply intelligent reform, if the latter included the slightest hint of submission to the democratic ratchet, spelling inevitable, comprehensive social destruction. Among the reasons to support the thoroughgoing extirpation of all liberal democratic inclination from Chinese society is the consequential real liberation this would make possible, by confirming a path of Confucian modernization free of demotic corrosion. China is to be defended, precisely because it is alien to the cathedral. For this same reason, it can be predicted with great confidence that the Occidental mimetic onslaught against Chinese civilization will be escalated to an extreme, as it becomes clear progressive pseudo-teleology is being rejected here. If China succeeds in refusing the cathedral, civilization will survive. There can be no more significant, or practically counter-revolutionary, cause. It is unseemly for reactionaries to be plotting revolutions, or anything remotely like them. Insofar as ethno-nationalistic loyalties lead them in this direction, it is a sign that one strand of romantic demodism continues to poison their souls, even as more clearly formalized democratic impulses are properly repudiated. To argue that we want our own state is a nakedly populist perversion. The state, any state, is answerable only to the mandate of heaven, and not to the people. It answers to the mandate of heaven exactly insofar as it shields itself from the voice of the people. Any state that is sensitive to the mob is a dog that deserves to die. A foreign guest in China lives under a close proxy of colonial government, and no superior arrangement is perhaps possible on this earth. Given the history of Anglospheric relations with China, this is of course ironical, but it is an irony rich in meaning. Hong Kong, or concession-era Shanghai, were far better governed during the colonial period than metropolitan Britain itself. If it is now possible for an expatriate to find refuge in such places, stripped of all positive political rights, and freed into voiceless appreciation of efficient, alien administration, the democratic ruination that has consumed his homeland has a demonstrable outside. The only political decency open to him in this situation is utter termination of the Occidental revolutionary soul, and the cultivation of docility before the mandate of heaven. He is, after all, surrounded by civilized people who availed themselves of equivalent opportunities under inverse circumstances. These societies work. Nyan manifestly blesses them. To lead a decent and productive life in a place worthy of it is the highest political good. Insofar as exit mechanisms obtain, the tacit choices in such a life reinforce what merits reinforcement, while disinvesting that which requires the lash of disinvestment. Angry antagonism has no useful place. On the largest scale, evil is best punished by abandonment. This is not to criticize secessionist tendencies in rotting societies, which are rather to be enthusiastically applauded, but it is to suggest that the deep dynamics levering the collapsed world apart are more likely to begin from strategic neglect than oppositional rage. It is not that one first fights in order later to escape. Rather, one escapes from the beginning, to hasten the enemy's collapse. Those most adamant about the righteousness of their confrontation with the great foe are the same who, in very concrete terms, are most likely to be resourcing it. You think it is feeding on your blood, to spawn its horrors? Then stop donating your blood. It is not difficult, at least in principle. The outside is a place, and not a dream. NRX with Chinese characteristics recommends that you search for it. Added, if you consider yourself an anti-democratic biorealist, and you don't think order will come from the East, it's probably because tribal loyalty is running your mind.